I mentioned a homeless man's name to an old woman and she nearly collapsed. I volunteer at a senior home every Friday because I needed community service hours for a scholarship. The first resident I bonded with was an 83-year-old woman named Joy, who somehow had more energy than my 11-year-old sister. Within 10 minutes of meeting her, Joy was telling me about sneaking into a jazz club in 1962 when she was 16 by climbing through a men's bathroom window in heels. The bouncer caught me 20 minutes later, she said, grinning like she'd won a war, and he bought me a drink because anyone that determined deserved to hear some music and dance. Every Friday, Joy gave me another wild chapter of her life, and I started looking forward to those visits more than anything. Then I found out a classmate of mine had more service hours than me, which meant I was about to lose the scholarship I desperately needed. So I picked up extra shifts at a homeless shelter downtown on Tuesdays, telling myself I'd serve food and not get emotionally involved. That lasted about 3 minutes. There was an old man named Teddy who sat at the corner table every Tuesday, nursing a coffee he never finished. He looked about 80, with hands that shook when he lifted his cup. The first time I refilled his coffee, he looked up at me and said, "You've got kind eyes, kid. Sit down a minute." I didn't want to. I really didn't. But something made me sit anyway. Teddy told me he'd been a mechanic once, and a soldier before that. But before any of it, he said, staring into his coffee like it held secrets, I was just a stupid kid in love with a girl named Joy. I almost dropped the coffee pot. He didn't notice. He just kept talking, his voice going soft. Met her at a church picnic, Teddy said. The pastor grabbed her ass, so of course she knocked an entire pitcher of lemonade onto the pastor's pants and blamed it on the wind. I knew right then I was done for. He told me about dancing with her under a broken streetlight, and he sang to her as the music because neither of them had money for real dates. He told me about writing her hundreds of letters filled with terrible poetry and worse drawings. I got shipped out to Vietnam in '64, Teddy said, and his voice cracked. Her daddy never approved. Poor kid with no future, he called me. Sent me $500 overseas with a note that said, "Stay gone." Teddy shook his head slowly. I tried to mail it back, stupid pride. Got jumped 3 blocks from the post office. They took everything. The money, my papers, my uniform. My unit left without me. Took me 2 years to find my way back to the States. He paused and looked at his coffee. By then she was gone. I searched for years, asked everyone who knew her, but no one told me anything, thinking she was better off without me. They're probably right. I was drifting, never staying anywhere long enough to really look. Eventually I gave up, started drinking. Long story short, I ended up here. He laughed, but it sounded like something breaking. That's a story for another time, kid. Your coffee's getting cold. I sat there crying like an idiot while Teddy shrugged and went back to staring at his cup. I couldn't stop thinking about everything Teddy told me. Friday came and I practically ran into the home, sliding into the chair across from Joy before she could even say hello. "Joy," I said, way too loud. "Did you ever know a man named Teddy?" Her face went completely still. "Teddy who?" My stomach dropped. Of course there were thousands of Teddys and Joys in the world. I was an idiot for even asking. I was already preparing to apologize for getting an old man's hopes up over nothing. But then Joy's hand flew to her chest like I'd physically struck her. "Teddy," she repeated, and her voice came out like dust. "That's impossible. He's dead. The military told his family he was missing, presumed killed. I waited a year for news. My parents tried to marry me off to some banker's son, and I couldn't do it. So I joined the army as a nurse and went overseas myself. I searched every hospital, every base, every place I could think of for 3 years. Tears were streaming down her face now. I never found him. I came home and kept searching, but everyone said he died in the war. I've believed that for 60 years. I grabbed her hands. "Joy," I said, "Teddy is alive. He's at a shelter 10 minutes from here, and he never stopped looking for you either." I spent the next week as the world's most anxious matchmaker. I asked Teddy if he'd come meet someone important, and he stared at me for a long time before nodding. I told Joy I had a surprise visitor, and she changed her outfit 3 times. When Teddy walked into the